barely here in physical presence, and that's it. Emotionally, mentally, everything else is not here. Britta can't come to the phone right now. You also need to speak up a little bit.
I just figured this is all gonna get edited out.
Amplification can only do so much. I didn't want to like drink beer, so boyfriend got me those Cutwater spirits in cans where it's like cocktails in a can.
Oh,
so it was like,
what the hell
lemon drop martinis, because it was that something with gin, and he knows that I get really mean when I drink gin, so he didn't want to introduce that into the situation. And then something that had like milk in it. It was like a White Russian or something, so I couldn't have it. And he's like, those were the 3 choices, so I grabbed this one. I probably should have got you the other one, but they're like 11% alcohol for like a little 12-ounce can, and what? I drink 2 of them very quickly. And now I regret my life choices.
God, I haven't drank alcohol in so long. I wouldn't even know. Like, so many new alcohols have come out since These
have been out for a while, because I remember when I first discovered them, I was like, margarita in a can, how fun! And I like took them to a party that my friend used to have. He lives near the fairgrounds.
Oh, okay.
And so they have lots of land, and so they would have...
Oh, is this the cornfield?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they would have a big party, and he would put down like a huge tarp, and we would have like a giant like slip and slide with like the hose and dish detergent, and then like
terrible.
He also had a pool, and he was a DJ, so he would like do a DJ set at night with like glow sticks and stuff. And so I was in the pool drinking these margaritas, and I like looked at the can and I went, oh, this is 12.5% alcohol. I've had 3 of these. I've been here like an hour and a half.
Oh God. Yeah, I haven't drank in so long. I wouldn't even know where to start.
I have to train my body for drinking around the world at Epcot in 66 days. I can't. The last thing I was drinking semi-regularly were like White Claws, and they would make my face like super warm, like White Claws.
And I'm like, I don't understand
it's
what's
just my phone. Don't worry.
I don't understand. Like, yeah, I didn't enjoy drinking them because I didn't like how I felt, and I was like, I think I'll just stick to like hard cider. That's like. Drink of choice.
See, hard cider's too sweet for me. Like, there were people drinking Strongbow last night, and I was like, I do like Strongbow if I'm having a single drink and like that's all I'm gonna drink for the whole time.
It's like I think like, that's the smoothest. I just think
they're all too sweet for me.
They have like really really dry apple cider or hard ciders now.
Yeah,
I just can't do rum in any capacity because I wake up with the dumbest of hangovers, and I'm like, I drink a shot of it. Why?
Well, it was like,
what is this?
I went straight from work, so like I didn't eat dinner. He like made me some like vegan nuggets really quick in the air fryer, and we split them. So I probably had like maybe like 8 nuggets, and he had 8 nuggets. And then we went to this party where we didn't eat anything, and we drank a lot. Like, he had 3 Tallboy, like, IPAs that were all, like, 7% alcohol. And then, like, a shitty PBR. And then, like, and we weren't there very long. And then we went home and, like, didn't eat. Like, I think, like... in the middle of the night, we got up and ate pie because there were 2 slices of pie, and then fell back asleep. And like, we were both just like, God, why am I like so thirsty and so sweaty? Oh, because we've been drinking.
God, drinking in your like not 20s is.
It's fine. I'm almost 40. You
Yeah.
can say it out loud.
It's just, it's not fun. It's not as fun. I always say 25.
It's fun while it's happening.
Right.
It's just
the
after
hangovers,
is not fun.
Like, there's so much worse. And I'm like, I don't understand, because like, for me, my peak drinking was like 25 onwards. And like, other than making the mistake of coming to work hungover and you had a children's program, I was like, well, I'll never fucking do that again. That was awful.
I just can't believe that like this is the same body that used to like go out and get like fucking raging drunk at night and then get up and go like substitute teach in the morning, like at 7:30, and be like, I'm fucking fine, let's go. What are we doing? Like,
I'm just like, I used to drink. I would get up. I would do like, it was a lot of different stuff. We'd stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, wake up around 8. So that's like 4 hours of sleep, and then be like, all right, I'm functioning. Let's drink some coffee. Let's eat a good greasy breakfast. And
I didn't do any of that, which I think is also part of the problem. Like, we didn't really eat breakfast. We made the air fryer box of vegan mozzarella sticks we were going to eat last night that we didn't eat, and split those. I ate an Uncrustable that I had and had coffee, and we sat there trying to do the crossword, because we try to do the New York Times crossword puzzle.
That's very wholesome.
And that's like our thing. We like doing the crossword puzzle together, and we were trying to do the crossword puzzle, and like we could not get like any of them. And it was like a special themed one for the Olympics. So it had like these different colored rings in the middle of the crossword puzzle. And we were like, what the fuck is this? I hate this. I can't even tell like what word we're on. And then finally like it clicked. I was like, oh fuck, the colors are part of it. Like, it was like birds was down and it was in the blue circle. So it was bluebirds. And then like, one of them was like milk toast, and so it was like yellow belly. And like black olive, it was olive, but it was in the black ring, and that was for like a topping on a like a supreme pizza or something like that. And so like once that clicked, I was like, oh fuck, we've been doing this for like hours. At one point we're just sitting there and boyfriend goes, brb, dig it, nerd, girt. And I was like, what is that? Are you quoting something? And he just points to the top corner where like we had been filling in like words, and then you look at it going down and it's not making any kind of word after it. It was just gibberish sounds like brb, like BRRB, and we're like, oh, none of these words are right. And that's been my morning, so this is really boding well for us to record a podcast with a lot of reading and speaking.
Though,
it's on brand.
I was gonna say it's topical for the thing we're discussing.
If I were on a golf cart with my canned martinis driving us around with like a pink flamingo in the back of it, maybe.
Yeah, it's topical. I'm okay with it being topical. I just, it's just a different. We process stuff differently now, unfortunately, and I'm like, I haven't drank in a while. I don't have anything against it. But I'm like, I also don't miss being hungover ever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me just have my normal, like, oh God, why do I feel terrible? And I'm like, oh, you feel terrible because your allergies are horrendous. Like, your eyes are crusty. I could feel like last night, because me and my husband are just listening to an episode we recorded, and I was complaining about like being a grown-up, and then like, yay, we're gonna stay up, and then me and my husband both fall asleep on the couch all the time, like every night that we're at. And so we get comfy, we get cozy, and then it's like lights out, and we're just trying to watch X-Men 97. I know we're real late to the game.
I haven't watched it at all yet.
It's so good.
I want to watch it. I have 2.5 weeks of a tiny bit of time when I can enjoy things on like maybe one day a week. So maybe I'll watch it.
There's
about 40 other things I want to watch too, though.
It's okay. We decided to watch it on a whim, and now I'm like, I think we're like 1 or 2 episodes almost done. I love the animation's really good because it's like akin to the 90s one but better. So it's like they just improved on it. The storylines are darker. Also, all of the characters are very sexy. And I'm like, this is why Magneto, he's jacked and he's got this beautiful, luscious hair, which is not spoiling anything for you because you can see pictures. And I'm like, why? Buddy, why? Why? Why is this okay? And I'm like, was he this like jacked up in the 90s? Like I don't remember this as a kid. And my husband, like, you watched the show, didn't you? And I said, yes, but I don't remember having beautiful flowing like locks. I said, I only remember him with the helmet on. So I don't, just be prepared for that. You're just gonna be like, what is this? Why does everyone have like 8 million abs?
I just have to like prepare myself in general for all superhero related things, because like the new trailer for like the next Captain America is coming out, and
I didn't even realize they're doing it.
Red Hulk is in it, and I'm excited about that. But I knew Red Hulk was coming anyway because they're doing the Thunderbolts or whatever, which Red Hulk is like part of that. So like I'm excited about that. It's sad because the original actor who played Thaddeus Ross, who is Red Hulk, passed away, but then Harrison Ford is playing that character now, and that's my boy. So I'm interested in that. But then also like they're talking about like where that's leading in the MCU, and they're like, oh well, Doctor Doom is going to be like a different multiverse version of Tony Stark, and Robert Downey Jr. is going to come back and play him, but he's like Doctor Doom, so he's like a bad guy. It's a bad guy Tony Stark. And I was like, still am not emotionally over Endgame. If you try to tell me I spoiled that for you, you've had more than enough time. All right, don't get mad at me.
Years.
Years.
Yeah. How many movies have they made since then?
A lot, and I don't care about any of them except for the Spider-Mans, the Spider-Mens, the Spider-Mensies. Congratulations, Peter, you're a woman. So like there's just like a lot of that happening. And then Buddy the elf coworker, something, this is not like superhero, but it's like superhero tangential, sent me this trailer for a movie, and she goes, I know it's only July and it might be a bit too soon because it's a Christmas movie, but I think you'll like it. And it's Red One, and it's The Rock and Chris Evans, and J.K. Simmons plays Santa Claus.
Okay.
And Santa Claus gets kidnapped, and The Rock is his bodyguard, like his like security force. And so they have to recruit Chris Evans because he's really good at tracking people down, but like he doesn't believe that Santa Claus is real, and he's on the naughty list. And it's like an action movie for Christmas, where they're like fighting abominable snowmen and shit and trying to rescue Santa. And Krampus is in it, and he's played by the guy that played Tormund Giantsbane on Game of Thrones. So it's this really super tall ginger like Swedish or Norwegian guy. And in the trailer they're playing Krampusslap, which is when Krampus touches the side of your face and then smacks the shit out of you when you go flying across the room.
This sounds like a goddamn fever dream.
I hate Christmas, and I was like, I would pay money and watch this in a theater. Buddy the coworker elf was like, it has Krampus in it.
Oh god, I'm not even hungover, and I'm like, what the fuck?
I know, it sounds like I'm making this up.
Yeah,
out of my brain.
It does.
It's not. I did that thing again last night too, where I like immediately just like we come in and we like walk into the room, and I like sort of half got ready for bed like by taking off jeans, and then was just like and like passed out as soon as my head hit the ground. So like I'm not entirely convinced that I'm actually awake yet. Like this might be Inception.
Okay.
Do I have a top I can spin and see I'm trapped in?
We do have that dead stink bug.
Let me spin the stink bug. If it falls over, this is real life. If it keeps spinning forever, I'm lucid dreaming.
I just keep thinking What is happening?
I'm trying to make that poster move, so I don't think I'm dreaming.
Okay. Weird. All right. Well, we kind of touched upon it. Hello. Welcome to the Lake Erie Library. If you're sitting here listening to us like chit-chatting, thank you for putting up with our shenanigans.
This is why I timestamp things so people can jump to like this moment right now and be like, okay, great. I missed all of the dumb bullshit that they talk about that no one cares about.
We started, going back to previous episodes for like research purposes. I was like, we were so studious a year ago. What happened? And I'm like, we got comfortable. We got comfortable with our podcast, which we should.
I think I also went like a little bit bonkers since then. Like I've had a lot of days with no like breaks. So like you get me at my lowest mental capacity on Sundays when we record.
It's true. I just roll with it. We do have very funny bits when this happens, so I'm like, hopefully people enjoy it.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But anyways, we were talking about drinking. We were talking about driving on golf carts. Did you know how expensive those are? As a small aside.
To own?
Yeah.
They're pretty expensive.
$16,000, like the price of a car. I'm like,
yeah.
Why? That's wild.
Well, there's like some neighborhoods now too where they're like making, like there's one pretty close to us where there's like a Target where they're making it legal to drive your golf cart like on the road in that neighborhood.
What?
And
get out of here.
Yeah, there's like a lot of like weird communities, all mostly affluent, being like, we just want to be able to have our golf carts and drive those instead of our cars. And I'm like, why? You all have really brand new, nice, functioning cars. My car is 1,000+ miles overdue for an oil change and has a tail light out and has been out for, I don't want to disclose how long.
Anyways, I feel like we should like insert like Jimmy Buffett music here.
Wasting away again with canned martinis. Looking for my notes on this app. Some people say that Britta's gone insane. And they're right. Do 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 do. You're all damn right.
So yeah, today we are talking
about us, he's dead.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway,
you're not wrong.
The party capital of Northern Ohio.
Yes.
Pew pew pew.
Put-in Bay.
Yeah. Which is not even the real name of the island.
That's very confusing, actually. But yes, today we are going to talk about, we haven't done this in a while. We haven't talked about like haunted locations in Ohio. So today we are going to talk about the party capital and the haunted
I don't think that's actually what it's called. I just named it that. I'm like, it's the party capital.
TM. It is now.
It's TM.
It does have like the world's longest bar.
Yeah.
So
I for some reason thought you were gonna be like, it does have the world's highest record of OVIs.
I mean, I don't know, but this is a very interesting, like, people don't realize that this exists in Ohio, right? Like, when you think, if you are not from the state of Ohio, you're just like, okay, it's that beep, 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 beep. It looks like a heart or a pair of underwear. You're like, okay. But Ohio has islands in Lake Erie.
Weird. Fucking do.
Weird. Like, we have a bunch of different little islands, and they're all part of the township of Put-in Bay. They do have all different names. There's one that's private, that's for the rich and the famous. That's called Rattlesnake Island. Mm-hmm. And that one is fascinating to me because you can't go to there, and in order to live there you have to pay like $20,000 a year or something wild. But they do have one person that lives there all year round because it's like a summer island. Mm-hmm. And they have someone that lives there all year round via like The Shining, who takes care and does the maintenance of the island. And nice. I'm like, that job. What is that like?
Yeah.
What is it like to live on a whole island by yourself?
Man,
is it like the lighthouse?
Naked all the time.
I'm just like, do you try to F a mermaid like in the lighthouse? Sorry if that's a spoiler, but like,
I didn't like that part. There was so much.
There's a lot of weird stuff.
You would think I would be on board with this because I usually think they're hysterical, but there was an excessive amount of farts in that movie, and none of them were comedic.
No, they were gross.
They were just weird farts.
Yeah, they were gross. I do love Willem Dafoe though. Like
Willem Dafoe.
Like an apologist for him. Like he can do whatever kind of weird movie he wants.
He's got a giant penis.
I recently told my mom about that while we were on our way. She's like, "What?" And I said,
all I can think about when I look at him is that he has that huge schlong.
And I said, "Well, you heard it from us." But yeah,
Have you seen the video of him dancing naked?
You showed me it, and I can't unsee it.
I've showed it to a lot of people, so I can't really remember. That's like, hi, I'm just meeting you. Do you want to see Willem Dafoe dancing naked?
Like I told her about, I forget what movie where he had to have a stand-in because they're like, you're. The
director said it was disturbingly large. It was
making
making everyone uncomfortable.
You're too endowed, my friend. There's not a lot of actors that. Double standard, right? Women have like naked all the time, but like men,
Fassbender.
You don't see a ton of them that like are like, yeah, I'll be naked all the way in front of the camera.
Yeah.
There's that one guy. I think he was in Manhunter and To Live and Die in L.A. I think he's got really pretty blonde curly hair in that.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen Manhunter.
But. Well, he's not in that, but he is in the To Live and Die in L.A.
Oh.
Anyways, back to Rattlesnake Island, which now feels like a euphemism. So there are a bunch of islands off the coast of Lake Erie, and they're all under, like I said, Put-in-Bay Township. The only way to get to these islands is by air or by boat. So there's not like they're far enough away that you can't just like swim there.
Right.
And it is a popular tourist destination for like a lot of Ohioans. Like that's something you purposely, like you might go up to Cedar Point and then like beyond Cedar Point, you make it like if you were hanging out, I guess, in Northwest Ohio, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to Cedar Point. It's like #1 amusement park in like North America. What else can I do in the area? Oh, I can go to this like Put-in-Bay, and it's like just essentially a giant party island. They do have other islands there. There's one called Kelly's Island where you can see like glacial
the grooves
the
where
grooves.
The glaciers came through and carved out rock.
Yes. I don't want to do the geography lesson because I feel like
okay.
Yeah. There's also a library there, and like they have a librarian there, and I'm like, how does one get that job? How often is that library open? Do you have to take the ferry to work every day? How else would you get to work?
I would assume that they like probably live on the island.
Possibly. It's just I'm like, I have questions. I would like to visit that library. So I just want to see. I'm like, it's probably tiny. It's probably like the size of my basement.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah, so it is somewhat confusing because we it's to it as Put-in-Bay, but it's the actual island that we'll be talking about is called South Bass Island, but everyone colloquially calls it Put-in-Bay. But they also refer to the body of water, the bay, as Put-in-Bay, and then that is also the name of the township that includes South Bass, Middle Bass, North Bass, Sugar, Green, Rattlesnake, Gibraltar, and Ballast Islands.
I always forget that we have an island called Gibraltar Island as well. Like, Ohioans are wild.
So on like much older maps, it was actually referred to as Pudding, like chocolate pudding bay, or Puddin' Bay with a D. I've seen it theorized that there's like a couple different theories behind this. One is because it's got like a dirt bottom, so it looks really muddy and murky, like pudding. Another one is because it is like the shape of a pudding sack.
I don't know what a pudding sack looks like, but I'm like, yeah, I believe you.
And a big reason that most of these islands were not settled earlier, but specifically South Bass Island, is because there are a shit ton of rattlesnakes there. Which,
if you've ever been in that area before, I definitely have been like at one of the nature reserves near there, and I think we saw like a baby rattlesnake, and I was like, oh no. And then we saw water snakes, which for those of you who have never seen those, they're terrifying. Yeah. Like just watching them go into the like water. I'm like, no, I don't like that. Slamming. I don't like that.
And then the other possibility for the reason that it's called Put In Bay is because it was a place for sailors to put in their boats. Like during storms, you could like come in and tie off your boat.
And it was like a nice, not like a halfway point, but Lake Erie is one of the smallest of the Great Lakes. So it was like a nice stopping point to go from like Ohio up to like Canada.
The actual South Bass Island was during the War of 1812. It was a port of operations for Oliver Perry.
Wait, we gotta give this full name because it's really cool.
Go for it.
Oliver Hazard Perry.
I just always think of Commodore Perry, full title, and also a beer.
I was reading through some of these names that we're going through today, and I was like, man, we just don't name people the way we used to. Like
Judge Pierpont Edwards.
There are some wild but kind of great names. I'm like, where's Hazard come from? Is that a real name? Can we bring that back?
I would assume.
Do you call them Haz for short?
No.
If that's your like full, or you just always call them Hazard?
I would just assume they didn't call him by his middle name.
Well, I know, but if you named a kid Hazard.
Oh.
Would you call him Haz for short? Or would you call it just Hazard always?
No, I think it would have to be Hazard. Because, like, Haz just sounds like you're British and your kid's name is Harry and you're calling him by a nickname.
Yeah, it does.
All good as. Trees in it. So, there's like a famous story about a battle that happened there in 1813. You know, like rations are running low. They got about a day's worth of food left. The British were sailing out on the lakes to meet the American squadron at South Bass Island. The Americans were, from our direction, were going into the wind. So it's already like stacked against them. They're like spending hours like tacking, just trying to like get within firing range of the British ships. The British ships were like chilling out to like the east, and at around 10 o'clock that morning, all of a sudden the wind shifts and now the Americans have the advantage. So this is, at this point, like there's this whole like history lesson that everybody thinks of him where good old Hazard, Oliver Hazard Perry, raised his battle flag, which said, "Don't give up the ship." And it took them about 2 hours, but they got their boats within firing range, and they start firing on each other. This is like cannonballs and musket era of firing for the next 2.5 hours. And
just the longest
and
battle.
Perry is like out there I just keep thinking of like the end of the one Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Oh, where they're walking.
The shitty guy is walking in slow motion and like everything is like blowing up around him behind him. I just keep thinking of that. And he's, so they're getting fired on. He's trying to fire on the British. And he realizes that like his second in command, who's Jesse Duncan Elliott, who was captaining the Niagara,
what a great
is
name
like
for ship.
Nowhere to be fucking seen.
Yeah,
he's like
not
out of range.
Him.
He's chilling away.
He's like, what the fuck?
Then he gets 2 British ships, which is the HMS Queen Charlotte and the HMS Detroit, just start firing on Perry. Like, both of them were like, well, fuck, I got nobody else to shoot. I guess we're going to shoot this guy. And he's on the Lawrence. And 80% of Perry's crew on the Lawrence was either killed or wounded.
Yeah, not a good, like, this battle was good for the War of 1812, but it was not a good battle. Like, heavy losses on both sides. So
around 2:30, Perry himself fires the last, like, working cannonade on the Lawrence. And within minutes, a cannonball comes through and just fucking knocks it, like, off. It's done. Yeah. It's not even mounted anymore. So he's like, my boat's falling apart. I can't shoot cannonballs anymore. Our pets' heads are falling off. So he's like, fuck, I'm going to have to surrender. This sucks. And then who fucking shows up but the Niagara? And so Perry and 5 of his men get into a rowboat. They lower the battle flag. He rolls it up and carries it himself in his arms. He gets in the boat with Barney McCain, James Jackson, Benjamin Dring, John Brown, and Ezekiel Fowler, and they fucking row. They row through cannonballs and getting shot at on the lake to the Niagara. They get on. He sends Jesse Duncan Elliott to bring up the other 4 gunboats that were still, like, astern, and he takes command. He raises his fucking battle flag. He, like, charges at the British line. And the British are like, where the fuck did this come from? We were winning and there's, like, not a scratch on this thing. This sucks. So they start trying to turn their 2 ships to start firing on that. And the dumbasses collide with each other. So you got the British ships crashing into each other. There's, like, an opening now. Perry's like, fuck these guys. And starts just raking fire across the bows and sterns. And he does this for like 15 minutes. So just after 3 o'clock, the British finally surrender. So the battle's over. And this is what we now refer to as the Battle of Lake Erie. So, like, as Beth said, a shit ton of people died on both sides.
It was heavy losses for both sides. But for the Americans at that point, because we're like, man, like, it felt like the British were winning, right? Like, and then we have this happen, and we're like, yeah, fuck these guys. Yeah, America. And so because we finally had, like, a big win, because the British were essentially trying to create a blockade to stop supplies going into the Northwest Territory. So, like, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and, you know, we can't have that. So this is huge and it's monumental. It's like a good leg up, and it's finally like, oh, thank fuck we won, because otherwise we might still be under British rule. I don't know. Between that and Andrew Jackson and, like, Louisiana, like, that really turned the tide for the War of 1812.
Yeah. And so of the Americans who died in this battle, the enlisted men who died during it were basically, like, they had a funeral service at night, but it was, like, essentially a burial at sea kind of situation. And the officers of the battle, there were 3 Americans and 3 British officers who were actually buried on South Bass Island. And the gravesite had a willow tree planted on it. And that willow tree does not exist anymore. It, like, stood there for 87 years and then it is gone. And there's still a marker on that gravesite that you can visit if you go to South Bass / Put-in-Bay Island.
And they also have the Perry, like, monument. So like, they have something to memorialize his efforts, because he actually died a few years later after the war.
He was really young.
He was 34. He died of, I think it was some sort of fever, maybe yellow fever.
I just feel like it's always yellow fever. Like, if it's not diphtheria, it's fucking yellow fever.
Oh god, what
or tuberculosis. Like,
yeah. So a lot of these historical figures that we're looking into, like, died from the fever. I'm like, Jesus, what? And I'm like, they didn't have medicine like that back then, Beth. It's okay.
Yeah. So moving past the point of it being, you know, like a strong point for military operations, there were several owners of this island who some of the first of them were like, oh, like the weather is pretty nice here, like the lake keeps it pretty warm, and
we didn't have climate change back then, so
it's got like a later growing season because of that warmth, which actually makes it a really ideal place to grow grapes. So there were a lot of like vineyards that were started and grape crops planted so that like people could make wine on the island.
Which this is great up until Prohibition.
Right. Some of the early draw, aside from grapes and wine, of this being like a tourist destination is that there are caves on the island that people would come and explore.
Yes, there's actually, at a vineyard that you can visit today, one of the largest like geodes in the world, and it's like crystals, and it's essentially in the basement of this vineyard. And you'd be like, I'm gonna go visit it's free. You can just go there and like you can walk in and be like, ooh, shiny. I haven't been, but that's on my to-do list of Ohio things.
Boyfriend just wants to go to Put-in-Bay and get like sloppy drunk and be in a golf cart.
That's fair because it has, as I said, the longest bar in the world.
Yeah. Maybe next summer. I don't think we'll get to it this summer, but maybe next summer. So this is starting the tourism industry on the island. Which then led to a few hotels being built there. One of which was built, we're going to jump way ahead and then we're going to jump back in time. It's not linear, this episode. We're going to be all over the place, I think. In 1982, the Victory Hotel was built. It was the largest summer hotel in the U.S. with over 180,000 square feet of living space.
Wow.
625 guest rooms. 2 dining rooms that could serve 1,200 guests at a time, an outdoor swimming pool, and an electric trolley that brought people from the docks to the hotel.
Ooh.
With stops at Perry's Cave and Heinemann's Winery. So you could just literally get off the boat, hop on a little trolley, go get a little drinky drink, go check out a cave, and go to your hotel.
I just had the thought of, with all these like hotels and stuff, I'm like, how did they get rid of the snakes? Also, do they have snakes come up through their drains in their bathrooms like we did at our library?
I think I said 1982 and I meant 1892.
You did. It's okay.
It's fine.
But yeah, what did they do?
Yeah.
Did they carry little
Who
danger noodles out in a Lego bucket?
I don't think they carried them out in a bucket. Like that little noodle puppy was like so angry at me for sticking him in there, but I was saving his life. I think they probably just stay away from the rattlesnakes, or they get bit and then they die because it's like the 1890s.
That's why it's haunted. There you go.
Thank you for this episode of the Lake Erie Library. So the hotel operated until August 14th of 1919 when it was destroyed in a fire. And the flames from that fire could be seen as far away as Toledo and Detroit. So, like, you got an island out in the lake, and you could see it from the lake. You could see it from another state.
Yes.
Today, its location is on South Bass Island. It's the Island State Park. And there's still a high danger of fire on the island because most of the buildings are made of wood and are over 100 years old. So this is like a real risk.
They dry.
Yeah, they dry. Throughout the summer, well over 750,000 tourists visit the island, and during the winter, the population is like 400. So there are people who live there.
I told you, it's like The Shining.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine, like, is Lake Erie? I don't know, like how do they get supplies there? How like self-sufficient are they? Like, the lake hasn't frozen over completely in a few years, but it could. Every year it's a possibility. It might.
Yeah. That's just gotta be so creepy too, because a lot of the buildings are like Victorian era or like steamboat Gothic, so like they just inherently look spooky anyway. And then just think of it like covered in snow and everything's dead.
And then I'm sure they have the waves that crash up and that freeze, and then they look like
the Grim Reaper,
yeah,
like on our boat dock. So that gives you like a little bit of a history of it leading up to. We'll get deeper into some of these locations when we're telling you about the hauntings of them. But let me.
How do you pronounce this name?
Which one?
The last name.
Oh, I say Doller.
That's what I was gonna say too.
It looks like it should be Dollar, but I'm assuming they're like German, so it's probably Duller or Doller.
Okay.
I don't see like an umlaut, so.
I was gonna say I was like, it looks like dollar, but it's probably dollar.
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 Oh, God. We played a game last night where we did accents, and it's like Cards Against Humanity but with accents. And
did you win?
No, I didn't.
What?
Boyfriend got a lot of votes.
What?
I know.
What? Is this a popularity? Well, it's Cards Against Humanity.
Much like Cards Against Humanity, you have to play to the judge. And so we took turns judging, and you would pull a card, and it would be like what the accent is, and then everybody else had cards with something on it that they had to read in that accent. And I think the only one I got points for was French. And it's because I was pretty drunk by that point, and I couldn't remember who the judge was, and I was like, first, who is the judge? You? Yes? Okay. And they're like, oh shit, she's gonna speak real French. And then my card, God, it's so bad. My card was, maybe I called you cracker because you are delicious.
God.
And I said, I threw my like sweater off one shoulder, and I pretended to smoke a cigarette, and everyone else was going, oh, oui, oui, to get into like the accent. And I didn't do that. I just went, maybe I called you cracker because you are delicious.
Oh, God.
So I hope this is not a French name, because I'm calling them German.
It says they're German.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
An immigrant from Germany, so.
An immigrant from Germany. Why isn't that like a Lin-Manuel Hamilton musical? Where are you at, Lin-Manuel? All right.
So I will say, as we get into some of these locations, Put-in-Bay, being a tourist destination, like, a lot of their stuff I was reading on their website, they really lean into like, hey, we're spooky too. Come to our haunted tours. Look at all of our haunted locations. Look where these people died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I can't even get mad, right? Because like Mansfield does the same thing.
Yeah, they do. One of the like generic ghost stories that's not necessarily tied to a specific location was someone said that in like the middle of winter, when he was young, this guy was like out ice fishing for most of the afternoon, and he was actually doing pretty well. Like he was bringing in a bunch of fish, and as the day starts continuing on into evening, a snow squall blows in, and suddenly he can't see like anything.
Ooh.
And so he couldn't see the lights from Put-in-Bay. And remember, he's like out on the water ice fishing. So he just kind of generally was like, well, I was in that direction, so I guess I have to go the opposite way to get back to the island. I'll just start walking that way. And he starts walking, and then is just like, fuck, like I should have been there. Like I think I walked in the wrong direction. And so he's about to give up hope. He's about to like turn around and go back to see if he can find his little, because you know when you go ice fishing, there's sort of like a little
tent thing,
tent, or like it almost looks like an outhouse, just like a really roughly built structure. And suddenly he sees some lights, and they're like coming closer and closer, and he realizes it's the headlights of a car.
What?
And as it pulls up, he sees that it's a vintage Ford from the early 1930s, and like it's close enough to that time that like those cars could still be found like in the wintertime driving across the ice from island to island. So it wasn't super weird to find this, but it was just like a little weird. And the driver was an old man, and he's just like, where are you trying to go? Where are you going, kid? And he's like, I'm trying to get back to Put-in-Bay. And the driver goes, well, I'm not going that far, but I can take you closer. So he's like, okay, fuck yeah. Like, let me get in the car. I don't know where I'm going. And they were like chatting for a little bit. And the man identified himself as John Ollendorf. And this young guy is like, well, I'll give you a couple bucks or like some of my fish. You're really helping me out. And the guy's like, no, it's good. Like, I don't want anything. And he goes, oh, I see that you have a bottle of Heineman's Pink Catawba wine. And I mean, I'll just take a couple sips from that and we'll call that my payment. And so this kid's just like, fuck yeah, take the wine. Go ahead. You can keep the whole thing. And then a few minutes later, they start to see like downtown Put-in-Bay through the snow. And Ollendorf like pulls up. He's like 100 feet from shore. He's like, good luck, dude. Get out of my car. The kid gets out, thanks him, and like walks across the ice to the island and goes home. And so he walks in his house, and his dad is like pissed. He's like, where have you been? You have been gone like way too long. You stayed out so late. I was about to get a search party together to go look for you. And so he's like, Dad, like I got lost on the ice in this like squall. This guy named Ollendorf like picked me up. His dad is like, well, hold on. Like, John Ollendorf is a guy. He's a real person. I know that name, but like he doesn't have any kids, and he didn't have any relatives with the same name as him. And he drove his Model A Ford through the ice like 20 years ago. Like, they never found the car, but they found his remains. Like, he's dead. And he's buried at Crown Hill Cemetery on the island. So
he got in a ghost car.
Yeah, so this kid goes to bed and he's just like, who the fuck was that guy then? So he's like, Dad, like, I don't understand. Like, what's, like, this seems bullshit. And his dad's like, come to the cemetery and I will show you where he's buried. And so they get there. They get to the cemetery. They find John Ollendorf's headstone. And what's sitting on it? An empty bottle of Heineman's Pink Catawba wine.
Catawba, yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've heard stories like this of like ghostly hitchhikers or ghostly rescues, but
you know, sometimes it's like you think, I mean, I don't know, like getting a little woo-woo here, but sometimes it's like maybe these ghosts are reflecting on their life. So, but like the fact that he was able to get in a car and drive.
Yeah.
And like, how does that work?
Magic.
I guess so. Model T was working on the ice. Scary.
Like, when I first read that story, though, I was fully imagining like Pee-wee getting in the big rig and then like, tell him Marge sent ya.
Another, I would say, pretty common story of haunting, and it's like one that you can find on their website, is of the Doller, the Doller Mansion. Mm-hmm. And so Valentine, see, I'm telling you these great names. Valentine Doller was an immigrant from Germany who came to Sandusky in 1851. In 1859, he moved to Put-in-Bay, and he helped start the construction of quite a few buildings there, and was also a prominent and prosperous member of the community. He built a house in the late 1800s on the island. It's very, I think it's pretty. It's yellow, and it is very Victorian mansion-y. It's got a turret that's taller than the rest of the house. It's almost lighthouse adjacent, I'll say. But he also, while he lived there, he was the first postmaster, council member, and eventually mayor of the island. And he and his wife had 6 daughters. So one evening, even in the 1800s, this was a place of, I would say, frivolity. Like, this is, you're going to have a good time here. It's a tourist destination, even back then. So one of his daughters left quietly to enjoy some of the nightlife. Her name was Olga, and she went to the Put-in-Bay Colonial, which was an entertainment hall on the island. And during their trek home, she fell into the water. She did like call out for help, and she was rescued, so she didn't die. Did she die? She did not die, but her dad was pissed that she fell in the water and was like, why are you going out drinking and like doing stupid stuff? So then he forbade his daughters to like go out and like to marry. And there's 6 of them, which is kind of wild. Like, buddy, you don't want to marry off your, like, this is the 1800s. You don't want to marry off your daughter and like, one less mouth to take care of. So he had another daughter named Daisy. So she moved to a home next to the mansion, but for the rest of their lives, like, the family remained on the island. And they were buried at Crown Hill Cemetery. There's a mausoleum for the Doler family. And it's believed that the daughters, because they had such an overbearing dad, that the daughters haunt the mansion. Oops, sorry. Getting excited with my hand gestures here. That the daughters haunt the mansion because basically they weren't allowed to party in the real world, so why not party in the afterlife? Also, they're just really mad at their dad because, Is it this house? I'm looking at a different one, but that might be a different angle of the same house.
I think that's a different one.
Wait, but there's that little part there, so I think it's... Yeah. I think it's the same house. I just think, You see what I mean? Like, the turret part is cut off.
Well, so this is also one of those instances where, generations of families have lived on this island. And so you have a lot of people with the same last names. So there is another house tied to the Doler family. So I don't know if this is the same one that you just mentioned or if it's different. It's now known as Ashley's Island House. Like, there were new owners that took it over. It's at 557 Catawba Avenue.
I don't know. Put-in-Bay doesn't say where this is located.
It's like a bed and breakfast now. It's like a block away from downtown.
They do say this mansion today is home to the Put-in-Bay Winery, so it might be 2 different buildings.
Houses then. So it's the same family. George Adam Doler and his wife Christine came to Ohio from Baden, Germany, and this is like Valentine is, I think, their son. They had 2 sons, Chris and Valentine. Chris and Valentine.
Sorry, Chris.
And then they had another son named John who lived in Sandusky while his dad and brothers like stayed on the island. Like, they started setting up like their whole family's future there. John Stephen Doler, who the story is about, was born in Baumenthal, Baden, Germany.
Ooh.
And when his mom passed away, he was still like really young, and there was no school yet on Put-in-Bay. So George Doler was like, well, you got to go to school, so you're staying in Sandusky, and like we'll figure this out on the island. And while he lived in Sandusky, he lived with the Barney family, and then he moved to Put-in-Bay. So they started building this house. It's like the late 1860s, mid 1870s, and Valentine built it. It's like a farmhouse with Gothic revival hints to it, and it has like that gingerbread woodwork trim.
Ooh.
There's a big wraparound porch that they added a few years later, and John marries Wilhelmina Shelb from Sandusky, whose family operated a boarding house. They had 2 daughters, Frances and Celia, and 2 sons, John Valentine, who they called Valley, and Howard.
That's cute.
And then by 1880, John and his family were living on Middle Bass Island with John's dad and Wilhelmina's mom. And John he ran a boathouse there. So a few years later, John and his family move over to Put-in-Bay. They take up residence at this Doler cottage, and he is working as a farmer. And there's like a pretty good chunk of land attached to this, and like a barn just behind the house. And then his wife operated it was like a sort of like a B&B, like people could stay in the cottage. And Doler Avenue is like right next to this house, and it's clearly named after the family. So during the 1890s, they're running like this boarding house on the grounds of the Hotel Victory, which was still being like built at that time. So all the people who were building the hotel were staying in this boarding house. In 1921, John Stephen Doler died in his house. So he'd been sick, but they did not expect him to die. Like he was sick, but it wasn't like he's like on death's bed.
Did he have the yellow fever?
I don't know. They had his funeral 2 days later, and it was like pretty much universally recognized as like the largest funeral that had been held on the island. Like everyone came to it.
Wow.
And what they did not tell everyone is that his death was actually a suicide.
What?
So early in the morning, he went out to the barn behind the house and he cut his own throat. So there's like some reports that, I know.
Damn.
Took a weird turn, right?
Any way you were going to unalive yourself, that is like one of the more metal ways to do it.
Yeah, hardcore. Some people, like some of the reports are that it happened in the woods behind the barn. Some people say it happened like in the barn. There's some confusion over where that happened, but he did die on the property. And besides John, there's one other death that happened at the house. In April of 1890, a child of John's brother-in-law died there. It doesn't say like which child it was or what the cause of death is, just that the remains were taken to Sandusky to be buried.
I was really expecting you to give me a really
wild
turn again.
So there's at least 2 deaths that have happened there. This like house has kind of changed hands through the years, but it has always sort of operated as a bed and breakfast. At one time it was called the Lake House, and then it just sort of got run down, and like nobody was staying there anymore, and it needed a lot of repair. And finally the Bransom family bought it in 1992, and so they like renovate the house. There was like raw wiring hanging down from the ceiling, and like plaster like with big holes in it, and like holes in sections of the floor. So they had to like fix it. And then they changed the name to Ashley's Island House. And Judy and Bob Bransom, who owned it, they operated it, and their daughter Ashley stayed there for a little while, like when she was home from college. Hence the name Ashley's House, you know? So they renovated it, and each of the 13 rooms in it has its own specific theme and is named to like reflect that theme. And so there's like the captain's room, the English cottage room, the lighthouse room. A lot of them have, a lot of the windows throughout the house have that like bubble glass in it. And it is still a bed and breakfast there. There's like hardwood floors. They have like all antique furniture in there. Everybody gets like their own private bathroom. They have like their little B&B continental breakfast. They specifically noted that Wi-Fi is available. And then it has this big porch that a lot of people like to sit on at night. So
is this like a future field trip for us?
Maybe.
Because like, you know, there's other places that are supposedly haunted, but this is like an established B&B.
Yeah.
Is this like a couple's
maybe
a couple's where you take the lighthouse room, I'll take the English cottage room. There better not be any dolls in this room.
Right. Gross. So Judy Bransom has said that a young woman she was Serbian came to work at Ashley's Island House, and she specifically asked Judy if the house was haunted. And Judy's like, well, I've never seen a ghost. And on this girl's first day, she came into the front parlor in the front of the house, and like all of the hair on her arm stood up. And so she started slowly backing out of the room. And Judy's like, what's going on? And she was like, I can't go in that room. There's just way too many ghosts in this house. I can feel them all around that front parlor. And Judy's like, I've literally never felt anything in there, and I don't know of anybody else who's ever said that.
Only
but
2 people have died. How many?
This girl senses it.
What? But I'm feeling a little slow-minded. What's too many ghosts?
There's just far too many spirits and ghosts in that room.
But what's too many?
I don't know.
Is
maybe
too many?
I'm wondering if maybe this is like ghosts who went to that Happen funeral or something like that, and they're in the front parlor or whatever.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe soldiers from this.
A lot of things it could be, but in any case, she's like, fuck no, I'm not going in there.
So something to think about.
Yes.
Don't drink Lake Erie water, because a lot of people have died in there. They've just thrown a lot of dead bodies in there.
Yeah.
When I say don't drink it, I mean like drink your tap water, because that's
don't just go in the lake and drink out of it.
Yeah, there's also dead zone like algae in it. Yuck.
Yeah.
Sorry. Small side.
So the first year when they were running Ashley's Island House, Judy was doing some spring cleaning upstairs, and it was like, you know, she's like been working for a while. She's finishing some vacuuming in room 9 at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden all of the pictures fall off the walls.
Ma'am, that's the devil's hour. Why are you cleaning at that time? You clean in the daylight.
And it's like one after another. Not like there was a big boom that shook them. It was like ba-doom, 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 ba-doom.
Because they're like, hey, watch this.
Yeah. So she just turned off the vacuum and left.
As and you should.
Like, I get it. You don't want me to vacuum at 1 o'clock in the morning. Noted. I won't do that again. And because she's never done it again, she's never had like an experience like that again.
I'm just thinking now of another place that was haunted that I've done like a library program over, and explaining like this like worker went in late at night because they had like different shifts at this house, and like they walked in and there was like multiple ghosts in the kitchen, and they just like they just did the
SpongeBob.
Yeah, they just like walked in, they're like, and I'm yeeting myself out of here. Not needed.
So the most common disturbances at this house happen in room 2, which is the captain's room. It's decorated with a nautical theme.
So which one of us do we like? Rock, paper, scissors it?
Rochambeau, I guess. The walls have pictures of the Brig Niagara, which we mentioned. That's the one that was like out and then came in and saved the day, and like navigational charts. And one incident that's been noted is this person is an FBI agent, and he and his wife had been staying in that room, and he went out in the hall and was talking to Judy when all of a sudden his wife came out and was like, why didn't you answer me? Like, I just was asking you a question and you just ignored me. And he's like, I've been in the hallway this whole time. What are you talking about? And she's like, I was in the bathroom, like cleaning myself up. And you were sitting on the end of the bed, and I asked you a question and you just ignored me. And then I looked back in the bedroom and you were gone.
What?
Yeah. So that was the first time that they heard this story. So there was just like a person who was, I'm assuming, like a masculine presence, because she thought it was her husband, sitting on the end of the bed, and she like saw them out of the corner of her eye and could hear them, and then like went and looked and he was gone. So she thought it was her husband and was like, why are you being a dick? Why are you ignoring me?
It's obviously John.
So since then, there have been like quite a few other people who have experienced this. One woman took a picture of the room and almost immediately noticed the figure of a man standing in the back. And from then on, the woman's like, this place is haunted.
So should we take pictures if we go there?
I don't know.
I feel like I'm gonna pee myself a little bit. Like it's gonna be like in the movie Hereditary, where you're like the first time through you don't notice things, and then the second time through you're like, oh, oh, the people, and like in Haunting of Hill House, where you're just like,
ghost. Yes,
too much.
So, like there have been several instances of this happening, and it's always a pretty similar thing where it's like a wife who thinks it's her husband and then is like, what?
Maybe
so
neither of us.
The general, I know, if we go, our partners have to just be like baby leashed to us at all times so that we know. And a lot of people believe that this is probably John, and the person telling the story noted like, well, maybe he could just start answering people when they're calling for their husbands and then we'd know. This is the picture of that room.
Nope. Absolutely.
It's got like
not.
really frilly bed ruffles on
Yeah,
there.
I don't like it. That's where the monsters sleep under.
I just want to know if like in her picture, was he standing like behind the bed? Like where was this guy standing? She said in the back of the room. Wild.
I do have so I've Fringe Paranormal, they did a overnight investigation of, they did the Park Hotel, the Doler House, and the Crow's Nest, which are like three of the main places that are haunted, so we will talk about those. We've already talked about one. And they did have some interesting results. I'll talk about the Doler House since we've already talked about it.
Okay.
So they separated their crew into 3 different places, or into 2 different groups, and then rotated them among the locations. They set up like cameras and audio and all the normal like kind of ghost hunting things. They took the temperature of the rooms and stuff like that. At the Doler House, they did hear female voices near the stairway. There was no one else in the location other than the 4 male Weston agents. Also, another incident that happened was there was a purple plastic spider at the Doler House. And it was on the floor by the radiator in the foyer. And one of the investigators picked it up and placed it in another room that they called the green room. It was green, while continuing to proceed to investigate the area. A while later, the object reappeared in the foyer. And then another investigator placed it back in the green room. And then again, the spider reappeared in a different spot in the house. They kept experimenting with this and putting it back in the green room. And then they kept finding it again throughout the evening. And they also did an EVP session by the stairs. And one of the investigators felt something grab the back of his neck. And upon checking his neck, there was a red mark on his, but none of the other members were sitting beside him, like they wouldn't have been able to do it. So unfortunately, they only got a little bit of like what they consider physical evidence of like sounds and stuff like that. A lot of that was chalked up to like personal experiences and not stuff that they could like physically measure as evidence, which I was like, still spooky though. Yeah. I don't want people touching me. Also, like, very fun with the spider, but that would also be like one of those like mind fuckery things.
Yeah.
Like, Saw, what are you doing here again?
So what if we go there and your tater tot is like, Saw, and we're like, no, Saw's not here. Saw's at home. And then they're like, Saw, and start pointing. And like,
they are at even next year, they would still be at such the right age of like poltergeists. They're here.
Or if they're like looking in a room and there's nobody there and they're like, bye.
Or just start talking and go, hi, me, and introducing themselves.
Happy see you.
Happy see you.
Happy see you too. And it's just like a wall. And like, then, how fast do we book it to the ferry? Like, leave the shit. We're done. We're getting out.
I can picture boyfriend who has no like parental anything picking up tater tot like yeeting with him and being like, we're getting the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Before me and my husband even have time to like pack the diaper bag back
here's
up.
The thing. Boyfriend is a very gentle soul and is also very nervous around children. So I don't know that he would pick up Tater Tot so much as we go, hey, buddy, friend, maybe let's go. Do you have a toy? Let's go find your toy. Let's not be here.
Leading him out of the
Yes.
leading him out of the house.
Where's your mom?
We gotta go now.
Yeah. Or yelling for me and then I yeet the Tater Tot.
Yep. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, that's our dynamic.
I don't know though. I think Tater Tot would just go up to them.
Well, yeah.
And be like, up,
up. Yeah. And he would go, how do I pick up a child?
Right here.
Yeah.
Not by the shoulders.
Right.
Under.
Rib cage.
Yep.
Anyway.
So, yeah, the Doler house has some lady activity going on there. These sisters are, you know, it is funny. They're talking about like all the investigators were male that stuff like happened to, and I'm just like, are they thirsty in the afterlife? They're like, hello,
right? Maybe. So the Park Hotel is one of the oldest and most haunted hotels on the island. It's like right in the heart of like downtown, the village of Put-in-Bay, and it's been around for over 140 years. So it's like one of the oldest continually operating hotels in Ohio. And more German names here. This involves the family Schmidt, which is easier to say. And one of the interesting things is that there was like a rooming house, so like not really a bed and breakfast. It was literally just like a house where like rooms were rented out of it. Like,
okay,
you paid whatever, like a rent sort of, but all you had was like one bedroom. And like back in that day, like maybe you had to share that bedroom with someone. And so in 1872, they like expanded on the rooming house and they changed it to the Deutsches Hotel, which is, I'm sure, it's just German. And then a year later, they added another structure to the east of the hotel, which weirdly, this is like fascinating to me. They originally built the building in Toledo, then took it apart, shipped it to South Bass Island, and then Schmidt had it reassembled on the lot next to his like house.
Why the extra? You know what? I don't know.
So the building was round in shape. It had a dome and a cupola above above a Sophia Coppola above the main room. It was 150 feet across, and at the opening of this like whole setup, it was named the Columbia Restaurant. But almost immediately, the public started just calling it the Roundhouse instead of calling it by its name.
Roadhouse.
Which, do you remember Roundhouse from Saturday? It was on Snick.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking loved it, and I feel like nobody remembers it. And it was like it was like sketch comedy, but it also had a lot of like musical stuff and dance numbers in it.
We have discussed this before, and I think you showed me clips, and I was like, oh, I do remember this, but it's like a fever dream of like nostalgia where I'm like, oh, yeah, that's in my brain. I forgot about that.
This because it was such an interesting shaped building became like a must-see for tourists there. And they started to refer to George Schmidt as Roundhouse Smith. So they like Americanized his name, and they were like, oh, that's the guy that owns the Roundhouse. Hey, Roundhouse Smith, come on over here. And he's like, all right, whatever.
I'm just thinking of, as I said, like I think of now stupid Family Guy. Roundhouse. Like, he's just kicking everybody.
Yeah. Originally, there was no gambling allowed anywhere in the hall. And
Boo.
I know. And it was like very elaborately decorated. It had frescoes everywhere. All of their all of the attendants were in dress coats and white ties, like ready to serve you cocktails or like refreshments. Dinner was served every evening, as was lager beer.
Sounds like the Overlook.
A little bit, yeah. You've always been here. One afternoon, like in the early seasons of the Roundhouse, there was a group of islanders on the front porch of the bar who had their photograph taken. Like the Overlook.
You stop.
The following year, even more islanders came, and so they took a picture again. And so it became a tradition that like every year they would get like the bigger and bigger end of season like crowd there, and they would refer to it as the Mossback picture, because the islanders refer to themselves as mossbacks because they live on a rock. So if you were from Put-in-Bay, you were a mossbacker. So this is like the mossback picture. So he's got like this Roundhouse Smith has this like great business. Everybody's coming for this like end of season tradition to his place to take pictures. He adds on to the hotel in 1887 and builds a 4-story tower and adds more guest rooms, which now he can accommodate 25 rooms for guest rooms. And the architecture for this was like Victorian Italian villa. And then they almost immediately renamed it the Park Hotel.
In like the Roundhouse anymore.
And well, it also was like overlooking a village park. So they're like, it's the Park Hotel. That's so classy. The new lobby windows had ruby glass scenes depicting local birds. And these windows are still like, you can still see these windows today. Like things were going great until 1888. And early that fall, Smith develops a fever. And then by October, he's pretty much bedridden. And then around 6 o'clock in the morning on October 3rd, he wakes up like completely out of it, grabs his revolver, goes back to bed, pulls the covers up over his head, puts the gun to his head, and pulls the trigger.
Jesus, why are these men being so extra and unaliving themselves
on that island that might be making them do that?
I don't. Evil spider.
It's it. So again, this was like sudden and unexpected. Again, it's like he was sick, but like no one expected him to die from this, and then he commits suicide. So there's like a running theme here.
Get your shit together. They
had his funeral. He's buried in Crown Hill Cemetery. And then his wife, Otilda, continued running the Park Hotel and Roundhouse for another year, but then ultimately was like, I'm out. Like, I'm going to sell it. And she passed away in 1899. She was 58 years old, and she's buried with her husband. The next owner was George Baldwin, who reopened the Roundhouse in 1890 with like a big public dance celebration. And he ran this until like 1903 when he sold it to someone named Johansson. Johansson ran it for 3 years and then sold it to a mossback named Lucas Meyer Jr. And again, this is a German family from like Baden, Germany. So like everyone's coming from the same area of Germany here. Their family actually first lived on Kelly's Island and worked in the limestone quarries, and then came to Put-in-Bay to grow grapes. And then Lucas Meyer Jr. was born there. During Meyer's ownership, the Park Hotel grew to be able to accommodate 75 guests. They offered like a fine dining room that's like had the best food on the island. It was like renowned for it. And he actually operated the hotel and Roundhouse longer than any other previous owner until he sold it in 1944 to Merrill Shaver from Toledo, who stayed there for like 1 season and then sold the hotel.
Because she's like, it's spooky in here.
Right. I think Merrill is probably a man.
Oh. He's like, it's spooky in here.
Yeah. And then William Grunke bought it, and it was reopened as Grunke's Park Hotel.
I don't like that.
And then ultimately the entire, like the roundhouse, the hotel, everything was sold to the McCann family, and they own it today. So it's still considered like the finest hotel on the island. The rooms are still like sort of decorated to emulate that like early era of like Victorian settling on this island. And you have to remember that the hotel didn't originally have individual bathrooms in the bedrooms. There was like a communal one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they've added men's and women's locker rooms to each floor, and you can stay like for one night during the week if you want, but if you want to stay on the weekend, you have to stay for 2 nights. So it's essentially like, if you're just going to come in the middle of the week, like, yeah, you can stay for the night and then go home. But like, if you want a room on the weekend, you got to book like the whole weekend.
Right.
3 nights are required for holiday weekend stays. I did not look at the pricing of it, but like a lot of people are like, don't just like show up and think you're going to stay there. Like, make a reservation. Like this is the picture of the roundhouse.
I mean, it is truly a round.
It's a roundhouse.
That is a roundhouse. The ghost I read about frequenting there is called the Governess. And she is known, allegedly, she fell from the 2nd floor down the steps to the lobby, and she died. And she is known to frequent, like, when children are in the lobby, they like, I feel like I'm being watched. So maybe she's just like, don't do what I did, kids. But she's also known to frequent room 14 at the hotel. So room 14, and then room 17 is also like a hot spot for activity. And they're saying this one was associated with the suicide in the hotel. But they also say, and this is from Put in Bay's website, so I feel like not much is known about how the person unalived himself. They said hanging in the website. So I'm like, doesn't matter. The end game is the same. So they said that reports suggest the man remains looking down on guests in their bed and peering from the window in room 17. And this entity visits the Winter Bar located next to the lobby. But it is one of the most popular places in Put in Bay. That ghost hunting group also visited them. So they also visited the Park Hotel. And at the Park Hotel, they were focused on rooms 14 and 17. They also had access to the round bar, which connects to the hotel. And then they put a lot of cameras and whatnot around it. And then at the beginning of the evening at the Park Hotel, the investigators heard what sounded like a piece of metal bang in the kitchen area, but no one was there. It sounds like they didn't experience much more there compared to like the Doler house and stuff like that. They said, yeah, the Doler house was their most active location, but they said that the Park Hotel and Crow's Nest, which is also a location, were very interesting, but not as spooky as they expected. Maybe they're just feeling, maybe they weren't feeling them, you know? But the Doler ladies were like, sup?
Philip Boyles is like I think he's like the manager of the Park Hotel. Like since 2011, like he grew up on the island and then moved away, and he grew up with when the McCann family like bought the hotel. He grew up with one of the daughters of that family who grew up in the hotel, and so he like moved back to the hotel. He lives like in the hotel. He has an apartment in there. The year that he moved into the hotel, he just like immediately started noticing like weird shit happening. A lot of times he would hear people like walking upstairs and like doors opening and closing on their own, but there was like no one around. You would hear like sounds of conversations happening from a room and then there'd be nobody in it. And this all happened like in the winter time when no one was there. And usually around 4:00 in the morning.
Stop it. Why?
Yeah.
Why is this the shine? Listen, I get it now. I get why. I mean, Ryan Murphy, you were right. Hotels are creepy inherently, but like off-season hotels are even creepier.
Yeah.
You and Stephen King, like, yes, 100%.
Have you seen that? There's like a viral video right now going around on Instagram of this person who kept like scaring people in a hotel. Like they would dress in this like one of those like the Green Man suits where it's like all one piece, and they had like a weird mask on, and they would put it like on the back of their head, and then they would just stand in the hallway until somebody recognized them, and then they would like drop down and like crawl towards them, or they would just stand with it on like their face and stand at the end of the hallway, and as people looked at them, they just start like full out sprinting at them. It was like terrifying, and that's just what I imagine like in all of these fucking hotels when they're empty, is that you're gonna look and there's just gonna be someone standing at the end of a hallway and they're gonna start running at you.
No,
I'll find it again.
No, I don't want to see it.
So he was hearing these weird things, and he asked Melinda, who was one of the McCann girls who grew up there, and was like, is there any weird stuff going on? She's like, well, like, has your door to your apartment been weird? And he's like, yes. And she's like, well, yeah, it used to happen all the time when I was a kid. Like, the door leads from the hotel lobby into his living room, and it's on the first floor, and like they would shut it, and then they would find it wide open, and like nobody would open it, and he continuously would find it wide open even after he like made sure it was shut all the way. So it's not just like not catching and opening on its own, like it was shut and then it just opened by itself. You would also notice that the hallway light close to that door would like turn on by itself. For the first 2 years that he lived there, he lived in the hotel by himself, and then his daughter eventually moved in, and she is like not a believer in spooky things, and they were like renovating the upper floors in the hotel, and both of them, including the skeptic daughter, saw like things moving across the upstairs floor, and like nobody would go up there. The carpenters were gone. They'd see like something sitting here, they'd go up later, and it would be like all the way across the floor. And she had a pet cat that she brought with her. It was a white kitty cat. And as soon as the cat showed up, the door from the lobby stopped opening by itself. And then they would wake up in the morning. It happened at least twice. They would wake up in the morning and the cat would be locked out on the back porch.
Oh man, these ghosts are dicks.
Or in a closet.
These ghosts are real big dicks. They're wasting electricity. They're locking the cat out.
He eventually bought a dog. It was a basset hound, and her name was Lily. And like shortly after he got her, she started having panic attacks, and it would only happen in the living room of his apartment.
Oh.
And she would be looking up in the corner of the room, backing up.
Oh.
And so kids who have stayed in this hotel would be like in the lobby, and they would be like playing, and their parents would be like, who are you talking to, or who are you playing with? They'd be like, oh, like that little girl or that little boy. Like they're playing with kids who are not there. And sometimes Lily would be in the lobby like running around as if she was like playing with little kids. So like ghost kids are playing with her.
Who is she seeing in the ceiling?
Know.
Like Insidious? Like what is happening?
Right. In one of the upstairs rooms, people have heard the sounds of children laughing or like running down the hallway in the middle of the night. And then when they go and report it to like the front desk, they're like, there's no kids staying here, so I don't know what you heard. Sorry about that. And in one room, you can hear kids playing jacks in the room next door. Like you can hear the ball bouncing and then like scraping the metal jacks off the floor. And if you go to look in that room next to you, there is no room there. It's just like a linen closet. Yeah. There's a legend about a previous owner who like hung themselves from the third floor banister.
Yes.
But that's not true.
Okay.
And then they're like, oh, well, it happened in like the barn that houses the seasonal island staff. And then they're like, no, that's also not true. They're like, somebody did die there, but it was an accident. While the barn was being built, a man was back there tending to the horses and fell, and then they found him dead later.
Jeez.
There was also the woman who fell down the first flight of stairs into the lobby, and she broke her neck and passed away.
What a terrible way to go.
And it says
While it's true that the woman was taken off the island in the early 1900s after suffering from such an injury under these circumstances and later died, the name of the hotel in which she fell is not named. So they can't be sure that it happened at the Park Hotel.
Gotcha.
You can also randomly on all floors of the hotel, you'll be in a room and there will be like the sound of someone knocking on your door and then there's no one there. And Philip also was working one afternoon and he heard kids laughing and he looked up and there was this old barber's chair that sat across the room and it was just like slowly turning by itself. And so now that barber's chair is in the like entrance of the Red Moon Saloon, which is next door to the hotel. So you can come and like try it. But if you sit in it and you try to like swivel it, like it's pretty stiff. Like it doesn't just like rotate easily like that. And you have to like really put some effort into it. So again, it wasn't just shifting on its own. It wasn't like somebody bumped into it. So there's like little ghost kids spinning in the barber's chair.
I mean, do you blame them?
Right.
What else do you got to do?
And then one last story is like at the end of the season, there were no guests in there. Philip was in room 22 fixing the AC unit. And he heard the door open behind him and someone asked if he was done yet. And he was like, I'm almost done. And he was thinking, you know, like, it's my boss. So he finishes working, goes down to the lobby, and there's no one there. And he calls the hotel's owner and he's like, I finished. And the owner's like, finished what? And he's like, well, you asked me if I was finished with the AC unit. And I finished it. And he's like, I haven't been there today. Like, I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh, God.
So there's like a lot of things there, and then there's like I don't know. These all feel like very like fairly generic ghost stories that you hear in a lot of places.
Fairly innocuous stuff, right? But at the same time, all it's telling me is I don't want to live in a hotel full time, especially if it's a off-season hotel. Thank you.
I guess there's another one, like this guy who used to work at Pasquale's Cafe, which is across the street from the Park Hotel, and it's also owned by the same family who owns the hotel. He was like staying on during the winter to like do renovations and stuff, and he'd been hired to seal off an old servant stairway that led from like what was currently being used as sort of like a washroom bathroom to an upstairs hallway, and the bottom of those stairs is blocked with a washing machine, and the stairs had not been in use, and the idea was to like convert the top entryway to the stairs into a linen closet so that they had more storage space for staff. So he starts like walling off the old entrance to the stairwell on the first floor, and then he finished by installing a floor over the top of the stairwell on the second floor. This is during the winter. The following summer, the guy who did this work, his niece was working at the hotel. And at some point, she goes over to Pasquale's where he's like working during the summer season and is like, I just had a weird thing happen. This woman came in and was like, wow, the lobby looks different. Like the desk was over on the other side where the fireplace is. And John's like, well, yeah, that's true. And then the woman was like, there's a man stuck in that walled off stairwell up there.
What?
And he's like nobody knows that I walled that off except for very few people. And like, you would have known. It would have been like the owners or like my manager. Like you would have known. So who is this woman that knows about that? Let alone that like, that it's even there. Like, how would anyone know? Melinda, who grew up in the house, was like, well, the woman claimed that the servant was actually trapped in a passage that had been sealed off, and this passage wasn't very well known. And in any sense, we can agree that, like, somewhere in that building, I guess there's a ghost that's stuck and can't get out.
Help me, I've fallen and I can't get up.
I'm cold. Do you remember that?
Yes.
One of the spookiest. Are You Afraid of the Darks?
So one of the last major places I want to discuss, because I don't, there are a lot of different places.
There's a ton. It would take us multiple episodes to go through all of them.
And quite frankly, like, let's just talk about the major ones. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So the last place I wanted to discuss was like the Crow's Nest. So that's considered, it is the premier social club in Put-in Bay. This is a place where you can have a good meal, swim in the large pool, and, you know, socialize. Originally, the property opened as the Eagle Cottage, and it finished construction in 1875. The first owner, Captain F.J. Magel, ran a steamboat service for the island, and then in 1946 the property was sold and renamed the Friendly Inn. These are fun. And so guests could lodge there and also get like a home cooked meal. Today the club boasts improved facilities thanks to many improvements over the last 50 years. Workers there, it's always the workers, notice strange noises coming from the attic. They also claim that things are thrown up in the attic stairwell, come back down by an unknown force. They named the force Spencer. So they also investigated this with the Fringe Paranormal. Magel ran the steamboat the American Eagle, by the way. These are fun. As I said, these are fun names. The Crow's Nest came into being in 1968 when the Friendly Inn was purchased by two entrepreneurs. So they had additions to the structures, such as a swimming pool in 1973, a fitness center in 1991. It feels right that they put a fitness center in the 90s. And they made it like a popular gathering spot for Middle Bass Island. And then it's interesting to note that the front windows of the dining room were originally in the Colonial Dance Hall, which burned down in 1988. Caretakers at the Crow's Nest report hearing unexplained noises. They also claimed this is the attic stairwell. That's about all they claim. When they did their investigation, they found that there was personal experiences happening there. So, captured on like a camera, they had someone shove one of the investigators hard. No one was near them, and there was no furniture or structure directly behind them at the time of the experience. They did capture audio, but again, that was at the Doler house, so it was female voices. They they said it was interesting to be there, but it sounds like a lot of what happens at that one is I think I'd be pretty pissed if I was working there and trying to put something in the attic and it kept being thrown back down to me, very poltergeist style, like in the kitchen where she just like, the chairs keep flying. I'd be like, listen, I'm just trying to put these extra napkins away. Stop it.
So, there's some other accounts of like spooky things happening there. One thing to note is that a lot of people think that the ghosts who are haunting it are people who are buried in, it's an unofficial cemetery across the street from it. It was someone's front yard.
I was about to say, they removed the headstones, but they didn't remove the bodies.
It was like I think it might have been the island's first cemetery. It was like the front yard of like a captain.
Okay. Weird place to bury people.
A lot of people from the Battle of Lake Erie were buried over there as well.
So maybe Spencer's one of the soldiers, like being like, ha ha ha, fun times.
So it's possible that that's where these ghosts are coming from. There's like, similar to the other place, there's like doors that won't stay closed. There's one that's like the back door to the billiard room by the bathrooms, and every morning they would come in and it would be open, and like a staff member started coming to like the manager about it and being like, the bartenders keep leaving the fucking door open. And the manager was like, the bartenders don't use that door. Like, I don't know who's not locking it, but somebody needs to lock it. And they started getting like written up because every morning, like, they're like, who is not like locking the back door? And so
At the end of the night, they started this system where 2 of the bartenders would like make this like ritual of closing the door. Like one would close it and then the other would like check to make sure it was locked. So that you had like 2 people who could verify like the door was locked when we left. And then the next morning, the door would still be unlocked and like standing wide open. So they put a deadbolt on it and now like you have to lock it with the deadbolt. And that seemed to work, at least for now. That it's not opening on its own. The ghost hasn't
figured out how to use the deadbolt.
Like, what is this shit? I can't lift that and open the door. I don't have that kind of energy. At like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, Bridge Francis, who's an employee of the Crow's Nest and like a longtime family friend,
also
of
good
Melinda,
name,
was in the downstairs lounge at the Crow's Nest and had been like closing up with 2 other staff members, and all of the guests were gone. The 3 of them were like the only people in the building, and just before they were getting ready to leave, they heard what sounded like someone upstairs in the restaurant rolling silverware. So like at the end of the night, like you do your side work, you got to roll your silverware for the next day. And so like if you're smart, you have time during your shift and you get it done like ahead of time, and then you don't have to worry about it. And so it's like you can hear the silverware clinking together. Like it's a very recognizable sound. And like if you've worked in a restaurant and you've had to do side work, like you know what that sounds like. And so this like they're hearing the sound, and Bridge goes like upstairs, and like one of the other 2 was like, go see what it is. And he's like, all right, like fuck off, it's probably nothing. So he gets to the top of the stairs and he can still hear the silverware like moving around and clinking together, but notices it's coming from the office. So he turns around and he looks in the office, and the sound immediately stops. And so then he goes downstairs and tells them what happened, and the 3 of them are like, bye, we gotta go. During the spring of 2016, one of the staff members was walking along the side of the building outside.
These staff members don't make enough money for spooky stuff.
And saw someone sitting in a chair in the side window upstairs. And like he stopped and he like moved back and looked up again, and the person was gone. So he went upstairs to like investigate, and there was no one there. And there was literally no one up there. And even more, there wasn't a chair by that window.
This is just shenanigans wise. This just reminds me of like what we have discussed working at our library, of being like, all right, I turn on the lights immediately before even like the alarm goes off, because I don't want to be stuck in the dark and look and have something standing there. Not that it's happened, but and then I pick out books that like people want and stuff like that, and I only work on one half of the library until like, and then I turn on the I'm like these are all rituals that we do because we don't want to upset the ghosts at our library.
There's like another instance of like a Halloween decoration. It was like a black rubber rat that somebody left in the kitchen.
Who's leaving rats in the kitchen?
She's like, oh, it's like probably a joke. Like we've been like playing around with it since like last fall. So she takes it upstairs, walks halfway up the attic stairs, and like throws it into the attic. And then like a few seconds later, the rat comes flying back out and bounces down the stairs. And she's like, I know there's nothing up there where it could have like just hit it and come back down. So she picked it up, threw it again, and then it comes back out again.
Spencer!
So she goes, stop it, throws it up there, and it doesn't come back out. And then there was one night when Melinda was sitting outside with the chef, and one of the cooks came out and tells the chef it happened again. And Melinda's like, what are you talking about?
Why would you say it like that?
And he goes, well, it's happened a few times. When people come in to work in the morning, one of the burners on the stovetop has been on full blast. And this is like a summer day, and the cook left the kitchen for like 2 seconds, and the rest of the staff was in another part of the building, and when he comes back, the burner was on.
Listen, ghosts, this is how fires start. Only you can prevent forest fires.
Right.
We just said all of Puddin' Bay is very flammable. Stop it.
Right. So, and then of course there's Spencer, who's like the most famous ghost there. So, quite a few spooky spooks.
on the party capital of Northern Ohio.
So what we're telling you is you can stay there. Like a lot of these like the places we just mentioned are all places you can stay today. You can plan a visit there. And these are stories from people that work there, like real life, people. So I'm not going to detract from them because, man, they just trying to make a living. And they're probably like, what the heck, man? But there are some kind of tragic backstories to these like places too. A lot of men need therapy, apparently.
Yes. For sure. I also I'm like, that is just a little too similar for my taste.
Yeah, what are you guys doing?
It's feeling very like, the last caretaker murdered his family with an axe. So I'm sure you'll be fine.
No, that's the wrong one. Okay. Was there one more? There's also a lighthouse that is haunted.
Perry's Monument is also haunted.
Yes, Perry's Monument is also haunted. So there are several places that are haunted throughout the island, and kind of similar stories. What you're going to experience and whatnot there. So I guess it's up to you. Like I said, maybe this is a Lake Erie Library field trip, but maybe it's also going to be us eating the tater tot and getting the heck out of there. I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll report back to you. I will laugh so hard if we finally have a TikTok at that point, and then we're just like, I am so scared.
I know.
And then we get snot dripping down our nose.
Let's be realistic. It would be that. We'd be scared. It'd be filming, like, up our noses. But, like, it wouldn't be like, I am so scared. Oh, my ghost. It would be like, I'm so scared that I am going to vomit because I'm so drunk. And then I'd be, like, drinking out of a straw off the side. And boyfriend would be doing his weird. It's a lot of arms when he dances.
I think husband would
would be in a room by himself away from us.
Yes. Like, when can we go home?
Yes. What time is the first ferry out of this place?
Oh. Well, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been a while. It's been a good minute since we've done like spooky locations. And honestly, that was when we first started this podcast. We were like, yeah, we're into haunted location. We just haven't done it in a while.
Unfortunately, there's just also a lot of crime that happens in Ohio.
Yes. I feel like not that we've focused on it. It's just like, and there was like stuff that were like, oh, this is like appropriate for this. Oh, this is appropriate for this. Mm-hmm. Oh, let's talk about fireworks around 4th of July. It's okay. So it feels good. It feels good to get back to haunted locations in Ohio because there's so goddamn many of them. So yeah, you can visit Put-in-Bay at any time. Most people visit it during the warmer seasons because obviously I don't even know if the ferry runs in the winter time. I'm sure it might run, but not the way it runs in the summer.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do they get stuff?
I mean, I guess you wouldn't be able to get close to it because it freezes close to the shore.
How does Amazon ship packages to people?
Drones.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Probably. Good thing we live in the year of our Lord, 2024.
Well, they give it to that ghost guy in his Model T, and he drives it across the ice, and then they pay him in wine bottles.
And then Spencer just yeets it to the people at the cruise nest.
Yeah.
And they're like, God damn it, quit throwing napkins at me.
Maybe Spencer's also throwing the rat from the attic.
Oh my God. What an a-hole.
Spencer, get it together, man.
Anyways, yeah, so if you guys want to visit, you can. There's a lot of other cool stuff to do there. There's a lot of drinking you can do there. there's different islands that have activities and stuff there.
I think Put-in-Bay kind of has the reputation as like the party island. And there's like always like live music and stuff during the summertime. Kelly's Island is like slightly more family friendly. They have like a cute little ice cream parlor there, and like I remember going there and like we brought picnic lunches and like sat at picnic tables and ate, and then like looked in the souvenir shop and stuff like that. So
yeah, I haven't been. It's on my Ohio bucket list.
It was like an accessible like day trip for my family growing up. We were big into day trips. We were big Neil Zerker's One Tank Trips fans.
Yes. And yeah, like I said, you can't even get onto Rattlesnake Island. You might be able to take your boat and kind of get close to kind of be semi-nosy. I don't even think you can't even like Google Maps it and
it's like blacked out.
It's like blacked out. They paid to like black it out. What is it like to have that much money for Ohio?
Yeah,
for Ohio, get out of here.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just have questions. If you're from that area and you like live in Put-in-Bay, email us or whatever, or DM us on Instagram. Like, tell me the answers to my questions, because I don't know how to Google those things. I don't think I would yield very good results. So yeah, if you could tell me, how do you do stuff in the winter? I just want to know. I need to get in contact with somebody in like near Sandusky and ask them about their Kelly's Island little library. Like, how does that work? Is it open during the winter? Is it not open? How many people staff that building? Do you work by yourself? Because that would be kind of spooky.
Do you have late fees?
All right. So once again, thank you for joining us on this strange and unusual and spooky journey. Say hi to Spencer if you go there, and we'll say thank you to our spooky sponsor.
Thank you, spooky sponsor.
And we hope you have a good rest of the week, and stay spooky, friends.